Hi, I just want to read you a little letter that I wrote at parent teacher. I was asked to speak. The theme was mental health, and just to talk a little bit about my experience that I had last summer. So I want to share it with you. What I have to say is very difficult for me. However, I do believe that it may be a bit more difficult for you to hear. The most important message that I want to express is that I blame no one. It may sound like it when I tell you some of the things that we have experienced as a family, but I promise you that I do not blame anyone. There's enough guilt and bad feelings and what ifs to go around. I am so tired of hearing about mental health as if it's a brand new health issue that just came up in the new millennium. I was 5 years old when my second cousin, 19 years old, died by suicide. I was 20 years old when my uncle, 51, died by suicide. I was 45 years old when my cousin, 46, died by suicide. What was common about their deaths were that we didn't really understand or have any idea that they were suffering so. And the other thing we had in common is that we just didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it in the 70s. We didn't talk about it in the 90s or not 5 years ago. And why is that? Is it so taboo, like all those other words that marginalize a large portion of the population? I think we need to ask ourselves, how is this happening? How and where is this suffering coming from? And how can we stop it or at least diminish it? I think we can. I think we, as parents, as adults, are the change. I think the small things that we do every day can really make a difference. We check our language, the things we post on Facebook, and kindness, every small step. So I'll now talk to you a little bit about Riley. Riley had suicidal thoughts, but Riley has never attempted suicide. And Riley did not die by suicide. He was shot by the police. And that is exactly what the police told me. The circumstances of his death are not at all clear, and I'm not sure that they ever will be, but I will go on with that the next video, I promise. Riley was always sensitive, compassionate, and empathetic, and he was quite an introvert as well. Riley was very in tune with those around him and could easily empathize with those as well. People were always drawn to him, even especially as a child, and we just knew he was special. When Riley was about 2, he had a pretty big fall where he bumped his head on the frontal lobe. And when he was 11 or 12, he had a ski accident and had another concussion, which is again was in the frontal lobe. After the ski accident, when Riley turned about 13, Riley's mood did start to change. He became more withdrawn, but it was easily explained to me as hormones. He's going to be a teenager soon, and that's just how they are, and I bought into that. A few months later, Riley experienced the death of a dog, death of a grandparent, and then the death of another dog. And Riley was sad and angry. It manifested itself in severe stomach aches, headaches, and insomnia and panic attacks. These symptoms lasted until he died. I worried about him, and Riley worried about himself as well. Riley was diagnosed with depression at the age of 13. We were on the list for the CLSC. We were able to see a psychologist. He had a few sessions, and it just really wasn't a good fit for him. And as Riley was 14 years old, I could no longer force him to go. Riley was never on any medication. He was never really tolerant to medication and didn't want any. Riley was never treated like he had an illness, however, and that's my honest opinion. His depression was not taken seriously, not by friends, teachers, family, and at times even me. So again, I'm not here to blame, just to tell you what we experienced. It is, and and was easy to say, oh, it's normal, it's hormones, they're just teenagers. They're all like that. They just need to eat more vegetables, have get more exercise. It's probably ADHD. It's like everyone had a diagnosis and a prescription, even though a doctor had diagnosed him as suffering from depression. How often do we brush teenagers off by saying, oh, you think you have it hard now? Imagine, wait until you're older and you're in the real world. Or we say, it's not that bad. Just, get up, pull up your pants, and brush it off. There's a lot of pressure we're putting on these kids, a lot more than we ever had. Riley was labeled quickly as being disruptive, disobedient, and I was even told that he was scary. The last 4 years of Riley's life, which just happened to coincide with his high school years, were very tough. It was hard on him, it was hard on us, and I'm sure it was hard on some of the teachers. I know what you are going through as parents, more than you think. I will tell you that his last few months of high school were tragic. There are many things that I could reference, but I will just say one event. And last spring, Riley wrote an essay. As many of his essays, it did not receive a passing grade, and Riley was told that he was a white privileged boy and that he could never know the plight of any minority. In one simple sentence, Riley's feelings and existence were negated, and Riley did not matter. His depression did not matter. When Riley told me this, I wanted to shout from the rooftops and to just scream, he's sick, he's depressed. And I don't believe anyone bought it. Not that there was anything to sell, it was real. So then his depression became my depression, and what Riley was living was real, and I felt every bit his pain. And I was helpless. His illness was not taken seriously because even today it's still a stigma. So guess what? I guess Riley does know how it feels to be a minority because he was judged and discriminated against daily. What I hear over and over from our kids and their parents is that teenage suffering is dismissed as being disruptive rather than honored. There's no way anyone would get away with speaking to an adult or treating an adult that's suffering in that way. When Riley died, I read very little of what was reported in the media. It was clear to me that what was being propagated was sensationalized, and it was hard. And that was my son, and once again he was being judged. And now, once again, we were being judged as parents. I want to share with you a bit of what we experienced in the days and moments following Riley's death. It is both positive and negative. I want to share it with you because I believe it's important. We were living the worst possible moment of our lives. It is unimaginable still today just how traumatic this has been. We were basically left alone from the moment the event happened. We were left alone at the scene of the event. We were left alone at the hospital with no guidance or support from the healthcare services. And I believe it because I lived it. I never could have imagined the outpouring of love and support that came from my community. We received messages from Riley's elementary teachers. They all found me through Facebook, messages from strangers, Riley's customers from the IGA. Food was being dropped off at my home, messages of love from moms I didn't even know, and Riley's friends, all of them gathering at the site of where he died. It was incredible and exactly what I needed to keep me standing. Every word, every prayer, every gesture assisted in my ability to stand straight. The words I heard from many was that I didn't know that about Riley. He was always so happy and polite. He was the best cashier and had such a great sense of humor. What I also heard was, I'm so sorry. I have a son like Riley. I have a daughter like Riley. And Riley's friends telling me how sorry they were. That Riley had been there for them and that they weren't there and how helpless they were feeling. What I saw was fear, the fear in their eyes, fear in their tone, because I know what everyone is thinking. It could have been my son, could have been my brother, and it could have been me. I happened to go on Facebook at around 2 p.m. that day, and I see on Knowlton.com, that Riley's dad's not well. And I see in the post, I see the post, and it says there's this guy screaming at cars in the middle of the road on Knowlton Road, a complete nut job. And then the comments that ensued. It was just awful. It was easier for that person to get on his phone or computer and post on Facebook than to stop his car and see if he could offer some help. As my community was struggling to do something to help us, to help our kids, and rally and get them involved, you see, the kids were hanging out at the scene, and we just needed to get them separated from that space. And a concert was organized. The generous donations were to go to Dunham House in Riley's memory. I had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Colson, and I wanted the funds to go towards his organization that had agreed to help the youth at Massey, which there's been a group going on since February, which I think is fantastic. Um, but unfortunately, not everyone agreed that a concert was a good idea. A teacher had sent a Facebook message to one of the organizers voicing their concern regarding suicide contagion. And I will quote: "In a big hearted effort to help, I believe that you may be playing a dangerous game. This benefit, whether you meant it or not, borders of glorification of suicide." A few days later, I received a Facebook message that was actually a copy of a private Facebook message that Riley's dad had sent to a friend of ours. Larry had written him a very angry email regarding some Facebook posts that he had seen. And they weren't awful posts, they weren't negative posts, but it was just hard for us in the beginning to see things about Riley. So, this is the message that I received 15 minutes later. Everything regarding Riley on Facebook would be removed. We wish you the best. We don't want to have any issues with him. We love you and will remain there for you. We just don't want to get into it with him. That statement, it epitomized everything that Riley had struggled with these last 4 years. It is so easy for us to judge someone's actions and to react. I know that those statements and thoughts were not meant to hurt us, and they were not maliciously said. Yet I can't help but think how easy it was and how fast it happened. An email saying, "Let's not talk about suicide," we may put thoughts in our kids' head as if they're not already there. And our friends, to drop Larry like that because of a few words that were said in grief and anger. I am saying these things to you because I think sometimes we tend to throw our kids under the bus and say they're the problem. We're always talking about bullying and intimidation. Let's take a second look at us for a minute, at us grown-ups. Open your Facebook right now and look at the bullying and the judgment. There's memes and judgments about Trump, about Trudeau, students, celebrities. Now it's hijabs, and it's just you can't help but see all these negative things. You put a comment on Facebook about cyclists, and you get responses like, "Let's run them all over." There's just very little respect. And these comments are coming from adults and not our kids. I know it's very hard not to come off as not trying to blame others, but that if that's what you think that I'm doing, that's okay. I know I'm not. I'm taking responsibility, and I'm going to be mindful of my actions, and I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be kind in my actions and in my words. And I will also demand changes in our institutions because our kids matter. And we have to listen to them and trust in what they are saying to us. There's really nothing normal about feeling bad. There's nothing. And Doesn't matter what age. I wish I could say I have no regrets, that I didn't make any mistakes. We all make mistakes, and it's okay. As long as we own them and say sorry and strive to do better and to be better. So thanks for listening. Stay tuned because I'm gonna start the video. Sometimes they're a little bit hard. I know it's hard with the lighting and stuff. I'm kind of an amateur. But I am going to talk about the things that we went through at the scene, at the hospital, the night Riley died, and what we've been living. I don't want another family to go through this. I really don't. There's a lot we don't know, and there's a lot we know, and there's a lot we can do. So thanks again.